At 42 years old, Daniel thought paying off his house would feel like the finish line. For over 2 decades, that mortgage payment had followed him everywhere. Every paycheck had a destination before it even arrived. A portion for groceries, a portion for bills, a portion for the bank. And the biggest portion of all went toward the place he called home. For years, Daniel imagined the day he would finally make that last payment. He pictured a moment of celebration, a feeling of freedom, a weight disappearing from his shoulders. But when that day finally came, something unexpected happened. The biggest change wasn't the extra money sitting in his bank account. It was the way he started thinking. Because paying off a house doesn't just change your finances. It changes your relationship with money. And this is something many homeowners don't realize until they experience it themselves. For most people, a mortgage is more than a monthly bill. It quietly influences every decision they make, the job they keep, the risks they avoid, the opportunities they ignore, the dreams they postpone. Daniel knew this feeling well. At 29, he bought his first home with his wife, Emma. They weren't wealthy. They weren't trying to look rich. They simply wanted stability, a place where their future children could grow up, a place that belonged to them. But the reality of owning a home was different from what they imagined. The house gave them security, but it also created pressure. Every month, before they could think about vacations, investments, or personal goals, the mortgage came first. And slowly, without realizing it, their lives started organizing around one financial obligation. Daniel began turning down opportunities because uncertainty felt dangerous. A different job with higher potential but less stability? Too risky. Starting a small business on the side? Too uncomfortable. Taking a year to invest in a new skill? Impossible. The mortgage payment always reminded him, you can't make mistakes. But what Daniel didn't understand was that this pressure was affecting more than his bank account. It was affecting his identity. Because when someone has a large financial obligation hanging over them, their brain often starts prioritizing protection over growth. They become focused on avoiding loss instead of creating opportunity. And this is where many homeowners find themselves trapped. They own an asset worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But psychologically, they still feel financially restricted. They have a valuable house, yet they don't feel free. For years, Daniel believed the goal was simply to earn more money, a bigger salary, a higher income, more investments. But after years of working harder, he discovered something surprising. The person with the highest income is not always the person with the most financial freedom. Sometimes, freedom comes from reducing the number of things controlling your money, and the mortgage was the biggest one. By his early 40s, Daniel made a decision that would completely change the direction of his life. Instead of increasing his lifestyle every time he earned more, he started attacking his mortgage. No expensive upgrades, no unnecessary purchases, no trying to impress people who were not paying his bills. Every extra dollar had a mission: reduce the debt, buy back his future. At first it felt slow, almost pointless. The balance barely seemed to move. But something was changing that Daniel could not measure on a spreadsheet. Every payment was removing a piece of financial pressure. Every month, the house owned him a little less, and he owned his life a little more. But here is where things become interesting. Most people think paying off a mortgage is only about saving interest. They look at the numbers. They calculate the years removed from the loan. They compare the return they could have earned by investing instead. And those calculations matter. But they miss the deeper transformation. Because the biggest benefit of owning your home outright is not just financial. It is psychological. And this hidden effect is what changes everything after the final payment. Because when Daniel finally reached zero balance, he expected to feel richer. Instead, he felt something even more powerful. He felt lighter. For the first time in more than 20 years, his income was no longer immediately committed. His paycheck was no longer starting with a payment to someone else. And that created a feeling many people underestimate: control. But what happened next surprised him. The extra money didn't suddenly make him spend more. It changed the way he viewed every financial decision. And that shift is where the real power of paying off a house begins. When Daniel received his first paycheck after paying off his mortgage, something felt different. The amount of money entering his account had not dramatically changed. His salary was still the same. His job was still the same. His daily life looked almost identical. But the feeling was completely different. For the first time in decades, his income was not already assigned to a debt. A portion of his future was no longer owned by a lender, and that created something more valuable than extra cash. It created options. Because financial freedom is not only about how much money someone has. It is about how much control they have over their choices. Before paying off his house, Daniel had to ask a question every time an opportunity appeared. Can I afford to take this risk? After paying off his house, the question changed. Is this the right opportunity for my future? That difference seems small, but it changes the way people make decisions. A person carrying a large mortgage often has to prioritize certainty. They need the paycheck. They need the stability. They need to protect the income that keeps everything running. But when that obligation disappears, their financial world expands. They can think longer term. They can make decisions based on growth instead of survival. And this is one of the reasons many financially successful people value owning their home outright. Not because a paid-off house magically makes someone wealthy. A house by itself does not create income. It does not automatically grow a retirement account. It does not replace smart investing. But what it can do is remove one of the largest fixed expenses most families carry. And removing a major expense changes the entire financial equation. Imagine two people earning the same salary. One person has a mortgage payment consuming thousands of dollars every month. The other owns their home completely. Their incomes may look identical on paper, but their financial reality is completely different. One person needs a high income to maintain their lifestyle. The other person has room to build. This is the hidden advantage of eliminating large obligations. It creates financial breathing space, and breathing space allows better decisions. After paying off his home, Daniel noticed something unexpected. He became more interested in building wealth than showing wealth. Before, he sometimes looked at money as a way to prove he was successful. A nicer car, a bigger purchase, things that showed progress from the outside. But once the mortgage disappeared, he realized something. The greatest financial achievement was not appearing successful. It was becoming difficult to financially control. He no longer needed to chase every opportunity because he was afraid of falling behind. He could be patient. He could invest consistently. He could make decisions based on what actually mattered. This is a psychological shift that many people experience after reaching a major financial milestone. The goal changes. In the beginning, money is often about getting more income, more possessions, more recognition. But eventually, financially mature people start focusing on something different. Less pressure, less dependency, less financial stress, more control, more flexibility, more freedom. However, there is an important mistake many homeowners make after paying off their house. They believe the journey is finished. They celebrate the final mortgage payment and assume they have reached financial independence. But this is where the next chapter begins. Because removing a mortgage creates an opportunity. It does not automatically create wealth. The money that was previously going toward the house now needs a new purpose. And the decisions made after becoming mortgage-free can determine whether someone simply owns a paid-off home or actually builds lasting financial security. Daniel understood this. He knew the biggest mistake would be allowing his old mortgage payment to disappear into random spending. Because many people experience something called lifestyle expansion. As income becomes available, spending quietly increases. A larger vacation, a more expensive car, more subscriptions, more unnecessary upgrades. The extra money that could have built wealth slowly gets absorbed into a more expensive lifestyle. And suddenly, the freedom they worked so hard to create begins disappearing. Daniel decided to do something different. He treated his former mortgage payment as an investment opportunity. The same discipline that helped him eliminate debt would now help him build assets. Instead of sending money to the bank every month, he started directing that money toward investments, retirement accounts, and long-term financial goals. The payment did not vanish. It changed destinations. And this is one of the most important lessons about paying off a house. The real power is not the moment you become debt-free. The real power is what you do with the freedom that comes afterward. Because the same person who struggled under a mortgage can become a completely different financial person once that pressure is removed. But there is another transformation that happens after paying off a house, one that has nothing to do with money. It changes how someone sees time, work, and the future. And for Daniel, this was the change he never expected. For years, Daniel believed that money was the thing he needed more of. More income, more savings, more opportunities. But after paying off his house, he discovered something that changed the way he viewed wealth. Money was not only about accumulation. It was about reducing the things that controlled his life. Because every financial obligation comes with a hidden cost, not just the money leaving your account. The mental energy it takes from you, the decisions it influences, the freedom it limits, Before his mortgage was gone, Daniel had spent years making choices around a payment. The payment affected where he lived, how much risk he could take, how much pressure he felt at work, even how he imagined retirement. But once that payment disappeared, his future looked different. He no longer felt like he was running on a financial treadmill. He felt like he was finally moving forward. This is something researchers studying financial well-being have found repeatedly. Financial stress is not only about the amount of money someone has. It is often about uncertainty and lack of control. Two people can have similar incomes but completely different levels of financial peace. One person may feel trapped because every dollar has a purpose before it arrives. Another person may feel secure because they have flexibility. And paying off a major debt can create that flexibility. For Daniel, one of the biggest changes was how he viewed his career. Before, leaving his job felt almost impossible. Not because he hated it, not because he was unhappy every day, but because the mortgage created a responsibility he could not ignore. The idea of changing careers, reducing hours, or trying something new felt dangerous. After paying off his home, the fear became smaller. He still valued his income. He still worked hard. But the decision was no longer controlled by desperation. And that is a powerful difference. Financial freedom does not mean never working again. It means having more control over why you work. Some people continue working after becoming debt-free because they love their career. Others use the freedom to explore something completely different. The point is not the decision itself. The point is having the ability to choose. But there is another reason paying off a house can completely change someone's financial life. It changes how they handle uncertainty. Life will always bring unexpected events. Job changes, economic downturns, medical expenses, family responsibilities. No financial strategy can remove every challenge. But reducing major fixed expenses gives people more room to handle those challenges. A person with fewer required payments has more ways to adapt. They can reduce spending if needed. They can take time to recover. They can make decisions without immediate panic. That flexibility becomes a form of wealth. And this is why many people underestimate the value of a paid-off home. They only see the financial calculation. They ask, would investing the extra money have produced a higher return? And sometimes, depending on the situation, investing can be the better mathematical choice. But personal finance is not only mathematics, it is also behavior. A perfect strategy that someone cannot follow is not actually a perfect strategy. For some people, eliminating debt creates confidence. It creates discipline. It creates peace. And those benefits can lead to better financial decisions for decades. Daniel experienced this firsthand. After becoming mortgage-free, he became more intentional with every financial choice. He stopped asking, how much can I afford? And started asking, does this move me closer to the life I want? That one question changed everything. Because many people increase their income, but never increase their freedom. They earn more. Then they spend more. They upgrade their lifestyle. They create new obligations. And eventually, they find themselves back in the same position. Higher income, higher expenses, same stress. Daniel wanted a different path. The goal was no longer to look successful. The goal was to become financially difficult to pressure. That meant building investments, maintaining a reasonable lifestyle, protecting his savings, creating options for the future. The paid-off house became the foundation, not the destination. And this is the part many people miss. A house without a mortgage does not automatically create wealth, but it can create the environment where wealth becomes easier to build. It removes a major obstacle. It gives money somewhere else to go. It gives a person more control over their choices. And eventually, Daniel realized something deeper. The greatest reward of paying off his house was never the house itself. It was the person he became while achieving it. The discipline, the patience, the ability to delay comfort for something more meaningful. Those habits were now more valuable than the walls around him. But there was still one final lesson Daniel had to understand. Because after reaching one major financial milestone, many people make a mistake that can quietly destroy years of progress. And avoiding that mistake is what separates people who become truly financially secure from people who only experience temporary freedom. The mistake Daniel wanted to avoid was simple. He did not want to confuse being debt-free with being financially complete. Because a paid-off house can create freedom, but freedom still requires responsibility. Many people spend years working toward a major milestone, only to lose momentum once they reach it. They finally eliminate a large expense, but instead of using that new opportunity to build, they immediately expand their lifestyle. The financial pressure disappears. Then, the financial discipline disappears with it. a bigger house, a more expensive car, more spending because they feel they have earned it. And slowly, the freedom they created begins turning into another cycle of obligations. Daniel understood that the goal was never just to remove a mortgage. The goal was to create a stronger financial foundation. So he kept the habits that helped him get there. He continued living below his means. He continued investing. He continued making decisions based on his long-term future instead of short-term emotions. The difference was that now he was no longer building from a position of pressure. He was building from a position of strength. And that changed everything. Because when your largest monthly obligation disappears, every dollar becomes more powerful. A dollar that once went toward debt can now go toward ownership. Ownership of investments. Ownership of opportunities. Ownership of your time. This is the transformation many people never experience because they focus only on the finish line. They imagine that paying off a house is about a final payment, a celebration, a moment where everything changes overnight. But the real transformation happens slowly. It happens through thousands of small decisions. Every time someone chooses patience over impulse. Every time someone chooses stability over appearance. Every time someone chooses building over consuming. Those choices create a different relationship with money. And eventually, money stops feeling like something they are constantly chasing. It becomes a tool they control. Years later, Daniel looked back at the person he was before paying off his house. He realized something surprising. The mortgage was never just a financial obligation. It was a constant reminder that part of his future belonged to someone else. Once it was gone, he gained something he could not easily measure: peace. Not the temporary excitement of buying something new. Not the feeling of impressing other people. A deeper kind of peace. The confidence of knowing that a major life expense was no longer hanging over him. The confidence that if life changed, he had more options. The confidence that his future was becoming something he was actively building. And this is why paying off a house can change everything. Not because owning a home makes someone wealthy automatically. Not because debt is always bad. And not because every person should follow the exact same financial path. Personal finance is personal. Different people have different goals, incomes, and circumstances. But the deeper lesson is universal. Financial freedom is not only about earning more money. It is about reducing the things that control your money. It is about creating space between what you earn and what you owe. Because that space gives you choices. And choices are one of the most valuable forms of wealth. The person who has no options is controlled by circumstances. The person who creates options can shape their future. For Daniel, the day he paid off his house was not the end of his financial journey. It was the moment his journey changed direction. Before that day, he was working to remove a burden. After that day, he was working to build a legacy. And maybe that is the biggest realization about becoming debt-free. The greatest reward is not owning a house without a payment. The greatest reward is becoming the kind of person who can create freedom, protect it, and use it wisely. Because in the end, wealth is not measured only by what you own. It is measured by how much control you have over your life. And sometimes, the most powerful financial decision you make is not about getting more. It is about finally owning what you already have.